Hello and welcome to the Nerd Social. I'm Roger Nathaniel Ashtier.
I'm John Pott.
And I'm Colin Chan.
Hi everyone. So today we're going to talk a little bit about 1984, Wonder Woman 1984. We're going to try to keep this conversation civil. We don't want to, yeah, we don't want to pile on the negativity about the movie, but there definitely is some issues with the movie that we have. So I think at the top, what we should do is talk about, our general feelings about the movie in a spoiler-free fashion, and then we can talk about some of the spoilers of the movie and get into the nitty-gritty about what issues that we had with the movie. So, John, what do you think? What did you think about Wonder Woman 84?
My first reaction after watching it, I liked it. However, like you said, it definitely has some issues. I think without getting into spoiler territory, the action scenes were quite questionable in the way they were executed. I personally had an issue with the storyline. I don't think it holds up to scrutiny, the direction that they decided to go with it. And then there were just some aspects and things in the movie that I felt like didn't really serve a purpose and therefore didn't really add to the story. And finally, just like with any superhero movies that I love, there are always scenes that I like to revisit, rewatch, and this movie just did not have any for me. So, that's the impression that's left with me.
Yeah. Colin?
I think for me, I actually did initially liked it. I also felt that the trailers really presented some really good scenes, and that also I love the colors. Actually, I like the brightness and the colors.
Mm-hmm.
I actually like the fact that it was during the '80s, even though it was very over the top and there was a lot of kind of this big bluster that came into play. I'm a child of the '80s, so I was really kind of really like that whole scenes with the mall and things. And yeah, overall, I had really good impressions of it. But as I kind of kept thinking about it, it just got there were definitely some things that I was uncomfortable about, and there were some things that there could be some ways that could be worked better into the movie itself. So those are my general impressions.
Yeah. I agree with everything you guys said. And the only thing I would add is that I think my general impression of the movie was that I don't think it's as bad as some of the other DCEU movies. It's definitely not at the bottom. I enjoyed it in parts while I was watching it. I probably won't revisit it as much as I will the original Wonder Woman. Um, I enjoyed a lot of the character interactions, and we can talk about the specific character interactions when we get into the spoiler reviews, the spoiler portion of the conversation. Um, I I appreciated that they kept true to some things from the comic books, but in other ways they deviated a lot. So yeah, it's not the worst DCEU film. And I think there's a lot of negativity on the internet right now, trashing the film as if it's the worst thing that DC has produced or Warner Brothers has produced, and that's definitely not the case. They're just legitimate concerns and criticisms that we want to expand upon in our conversation. All right. So with that said, warning: we're going into spoilers. If you haven't seen it already, I know that there are certain parts of the world that hadn't gotten the movie. Not everyone has HBOMax, of course. So,
Yeah.
fair warning. Spoiler section. All right. So, John, you want to kick off again? Thoughts. Let's start off with what we liked specifically in our spoiler section, and before we get into the criticisms.
Sure. Themyscira, the scenes there, I thought they looked fantastic. Anytime they DC movies seem to go into the fantastical worlds or off worlds or anything like that. They do a great job of that. It looks great.
Yeah,
they
that,
did a really
that
good job
beginning
there.
scene was awesome. Yeah.
Yeah, it's so that scene always it looks great. Now, I wish there was more of it. That there was only just a small snippet of it.
Some people complained about it because it's like 11 minutes. It's a long opener. But yeah, if we spent the entire film in Themyscira, I would have been fine with me. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wouldn't. In fact, and since I like that scene so much, I wouldn't mind if the whole movie was in there as well. I mean, you had Robin Wright come back for what, 2 minutes? And Connie Nielsen come back for 2 minutes of their airtime, and they're both fantastic. They look great in those outfits, right?
Right.
The costumes that they have for those Amazonians,
Mm-hmm.
but they didn't do anything.
Yeah.
They threw a fortune cookie line, and they were off to the races for the rest of the movie. So,
right.
But I thought Themyscira it was done well. So.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, there was one particular scene that I remembered where there was one of the Amazons that were moving up the water, like with the waterfall, and it was just so amazing. I was like, wow, that's amazing, like athletic ability and just ability overall of anyone that can do that.
Yeah.
Moving up the waterfall like that. It's just amazing.
It's like Ninja Warrior Themyscira edition.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. I think for me, it's I like the again, like I said in the non-spoiler part, I really like the colors. I'm just a sucker for colors and just the brightness of it.
Yeah.
And also the invisible jet. When I was younger, I watched Super Friends in the 80s, and I just remember Wonder Woman's invisible jet, and it just brought back really good memories for me. And I think that scene was just shot so beautifully with Steve Trevor and Diana together like that. Really kind of bring out some really good feelings and just like some feel good moments throughout that scene. So fireworks were amazing. Just like the way they shot it was really amazing. The awe-inspiring parts of it.
Yeah, it really harkens back to the Richard Donner Superman, right?
Yeah, and I think that's what she was going for. In a lot of interviews, she says that was her inspiration. Which I mean is good on one hand, and we're still in the good parts. But there's two sides of that coin, and we can talk about why that probably wasn't the best approach. But yeah, so you can definitely see where the inspiration from the Donner films was in this film, and it works where it works, and it doesn't where it doesn't, and we can talk about where it doesn't. But for me, the what I really liked was the character interaction specifically. I think the entire story doesn't necessarily knit together, but the individual character interactions, specifically between like Diana and Steve Trevor, I think all of their scenes are really good. I think most of the scenes between Diana and I'm going to say Kirsten. What's her name? Barbara.
Yep.
I was going to say Cheetah. They were pretty good. All the stuff that Pedro Pascal did was mostly good. I really liked the way that they humanized his character in this movie. I think that they did a better job of humanizing him as the villain than most superhero movies do.
Yeah,
it's not the best. I think still Killmonger and Black Panther is probably up there, but for like understanding their motivation anyway. But you understand where he's coming from very well in this movie.
I think chemistry. You're right. They share a really great chemistry, and calling back to what you were saying. The colors. I mean, just look at that photo of her outfit. It's definitely brighter compared to the first one, where it's all like washed out a little bit. I don't know why.
They definitely desaturated the colors, and
they love to saturate their colors in the first of every movie. Right?
Yeah, Yeah.
But, to Man of Steel, to even this, and then writing it for the sequels. Gal just looks fantastic. That's the other thing I like about it. They really, the close-ups, the action shots of just. There's a lot of comic booky moments that I thought they filmed quite nicely for all those things. And then her swinging on the lightning. I mean, tell me that's not badass. That is
Yes.
that's cool as hell, right? And
Yeah.
when I saw that in the commercials, I really wanted them to build on that. And then, of course, the golden armor. That looks great too. It looks awesome, right?
Yeah, it definitely looks good. The golden armor. How functional it is we can talk or how useful it was. We can talk about that in our criticisms or issues. So I guess we can move on to some of the issues that we had with the film. Colin, you want to start off there?
Yeah, I just actually want to go quickly back to Pedro Pascal. I think that, he deserves some sort of like Father of the Year award. I think that, with Mandalorian, and I think the other movie that he's in, it was a Spy Kids sequel. And also with this is, I think that, those scenes in which he had with his son was very touching. Just that scene near the end of the movie. I just felt that he really hit those those emotional notes really, really strongly.
Mm-hmm.
So kudos for him to bring that out. Between the father and the son dynamic. So I think that was great. In terms of the criticism, going back to the original question, I think that starting with Pedro Pascal, I think that there were some parts where it didn't really make sense as to why he was in an oil business, but it was like some sort of shell company or something like that.
Right.
And also, there were some tones to current political environment of a figure that's very prominent right now. Now, some people might get turned off by that that are watching, so that might be also a knock on that. And I think that I think that both of you might agree on also the Cheetah character. I think that very underutilized in a lot of ways, and kind of left the character hanging at the very end almost. Like, what's going to happen with her? And did she lose her powers or not? We don't really know that.
Yeah.
And finally, also the fact that it was kind of forced in terms of her evolution was in a way just. I didn't feel very comfortable with the evolution of her starting off in the movie as being this very, bookworm type of individual, and then you put on a dress, you put on some shoes, and then you take off your glasses, and then it just becomes a completely different person. So that's where I kind of a little bit lost on me.
So we talked a little bit about that even before our broadcast. The recording here was that trope that it was playing with, right? You've got the pathetic loser, bookworm, nerdy type character that turns into the supervillain, and how it just was not successful because the many examples we've seen that in other superhero movies, it was not successful. In fact, we can probably only point to one. Maybe that it was very successful, and that was in Batman Returns. In Batman Returns, where it was successful, you have the Michelle Pfeiffer character, Selena Kyle turning to Catwoman. That really worked there, where you have that type of character just turn into a supervillain. And then you have plenty of other examples where it did not work very well at all, such as The Amazing Spider-Man 2 with Jamie Foxx turning into Electro,
right.
And then Batman Forever. You have Jim Carrey, Riddler character, going from Edward Nygma to that. All of them just were over the top, came out very cheesy and campy, just did not work at all. And it was the same in this case, I thought, with Barbara Minerva character. They went out of their way to, again, that trope. You got to have that nerd drop all the papers. That nerd's got to have the glasses, right? And just go to the extreme to show that this person is just really not all there. So
Yeah,
I like either.
and I mean, we don't have any women on the panel right now, but the other thing that was a little troubling about it is like it's not. I mean, having her focus so much on her looks or the things that she admired about Diana because she didn't know she had superpowers was was what she looked like and all the guys falling over her as soon as she changed. It was not necessarily the best message to be sending to girls, in my opinion.
Yeah, she wanted the attention of the men, and but even look at Diana, even with her wish. 70 years after his death, she's still pining for him.
Yeah,
pining for Chris Pine. So it just, I mean, come on, you're out saving the world, and that's really what you're wishing for there, and but also the whole wish storyline too. The more I think about it, and I talked it over with you guys too, the more I keep thinking about it, it just does not hold up to scrutiny. Every time I think about it, I think of it less and less because that wishing storyline, I renounce my wish, and come on.
Yeah,
I think it done better.
It made no sense that everyone would have renounced their wish. It made no sense that all the wishes were selfish. It made no sense at the end. At the end, I didn't understand why Barbara turned into a cat because she already had a wish, right? She wanted to be like Diana, and he specifically they had it seen specifically when he tried to get someone to wish again. He said, "Did you wish already?" And she had, so it wasn't very clear. The wish rules weren't very clear, and when you create like a magic system, you have to have clear rules within a movie or within a piece of fiction. Otherwise, it pulls you out of the fiction.
Yeah, I think that she was granted another wish because she wanted to be an apex predator. I remember that, and then that's how she became Cheetah.
I mean,
but again, it's not very well explained.
Did she renounce her original? Yeah. Did she renounce her original wish and make another wish?
She wished upon a rock the first time, and this time she's wishing upon the Pedro Pascal genie.
Right. But he said that he wanted to become the Rock, though. So like that's what I'm saying. It wasn't clear. It wasn't clear. It wasn't clear at all. He said I want to be the wishing stone. So
so why didn't he turn into the stone?
Yeah. It wasn't very clear. It was confusing and it didn't make sense whatsoever. Especially, and she wasn't very clear about what apex predator she wanted to show up as. So the fact that she showed up as a cheetah was whatever. It was they as you guys said, they didn't really work. They didn't really use that character very well. They didn't flesh her out very well. They should have just used her in a third movie and kept it to one villain.
I think that's what they were doing.
I also want to mention that when she first met with Diana, she looked at her heels and her heels was like a leopard print, and that's probably how they, I don't know, maybe have thought that, oh yeah, I like the print, so that means that I wanted to be a cheetah. So, but that's still a little bit of a stretch, I would say, to kind of get to that point.
Yeah. And speaking of things that weren't making sense, I know their media's, or at least people commenting have mentioned this, but Trevor returning, the way he returned, and the whole the problems that are presented with just the way he returned as well, right?
Yeah, the scenes between them were definitely the best part of the movies, but the way that he returned and what they did with that guy's the body that they were borrowing.
Oh no!
The body that they were wearing was not the best way to do that, and they showed later in the movie that the wishing stone could make things appear. It made an entire wall appear, so it could make him appear. So why couldn't it make him appear? It was the worst way possible to do this because if the genders were reversed, and many people have said this, if the genders were reversed, it would be a lot of uproar about this.
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah.
They even touched upon it briefly when Trevor said, "Well, what about this guy?" Right? She's like, "No, I want you. I want you."
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, they had a chance with it, and yeah, that was creepy. That was creepy as hell.
Yeah.
Yeah, and the fact that the guy at the end actually came back and during the
Yeah.
scene, and it's like that's kind of awkward that he
Yeah.
showed up again, and Diana's like, "Hey, I kind of know who you are," in a way, and
Yeah.
it's very very weird in that,
It was
in that
awkward.
sense. Yeah, very
Yeah.
weird.
Yeah, I mean, she's just smiling the whole time, like, yeah, we had a thing there, right?
Yeah,
Right.
yeah, exactly. So it's kind of all sorts of kind of weird behavior.
Yeah.
Now, I was going to mention that, you know, I know Colin, and I agree with you when you previously said the callbacks to 1980s, 1984, but you know, the one thing was unless you guys can tell me, I can't really think of a reason why they had it set in 1984. I didn't think it really served any purpose. Maybe they had like one or two references to the Cold War, but otherwise, you know, other than for laughs, I'm not sure exactly why 84 was of any significance at all.
I read an article that said that they had it set in the 80s so they could do 1980s politics, Middle East politics, in a very hammy way, which was another not great part of the movie.
Yeah.
But also, I mean, maybe she was trying to channel like Frank Miller in some ways. I mean, if you watched The Dark Knight Returns, I mean that's set in the 80s.
Right.
I mean, maybe you're trying to go for that. I'm not really sure. But that didn't really make much sense.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. And then I guess I mean, this is we don't want to go on too long about the things we did like we want to hit certain things. One thing that I had an issue with was the action in this movie. So Patty Jenkins had established in the first movie that she wanted to go a different way with the action and do it differently than Snyder established in Batman versus Superman. That would have been fine. She would have had to do that in the first movie, but she had the action in the first movie look a lot more grounded and a lot more realistic. I mean, she's a super being who flies and has super strength. So as realistic as you can make that, but it actually her actions seem to have actual weight. Whereas in this movie, she's moving around sort of like a cartoon character. I mean, she's super running. And it doesn't look like she's actually touching the pavement. There's all kinds of weird cartoon physics in this movie, which kind of takes away.
It looks like the way they produce South Park, the cartoon, with their cutout. They just simply move the character around with no regard to the physics. Right. You're right. I you know, when I was watching the trailer leading up to the movie, and you saw the scene where they're in the desert and she's flying through the air, I thought that has to be an unfinished shot, right? Because the way that shot just came off, it looked like she's just floating up there. It doesn't look right. It looks cheesy, especially the way they had her pose with her arms out. Yeah. And then when we got the movie, the actual movie itself, it's in every action scene. Every action scene had that, where she's just kind of floating about. Yeah, it didn't look right. It didn't look right, and that's one of the main reasons I really don't. And I didn't enjoy the action scenes, especially when I try to rewatch it. I can't revisit them. It's not one of those scenes I want to go back and watch, and especially playing the background and say, "Oh yeah, that was a really cool scene."
Right.
I think also part of the thing is that throughout the action scenes, it's more as though she's playing defense instead of like going on the offense. So like in the first Wonder Woman, you can tell that she's going on offense. You can also tell in Batman vs Superman, she was really going on the offense. So having that shift in tone of playing defense most of the time, it just doesn't bring out kind of like the really good action scene. I mean, in a lot of ways, like to kind of borrow from sports, you don't really watch sports for defense. You watch sports for offense.
Yeah. So
that's kind of how I felt about it. I understand in some ways why you want to do that, but we want an action movie. We want to have, like, as an audience, we want to have action movie. We want to have these are heroes, these superheroes that should be going on the offensive to fight for justice and all the good stuff that's out there as being a superhero.
Yeah, I think that goes back to what we were talking about in the in our what we like section. So it was definitely a choice. It was a choice to kind of set her up in the vein of the Donner films. Set this movie up in the vein of the Donner films, which is okay in one sense. In the other sense, it's a little. I mean, those films, of course, Superman is going to beat people up because he's the most powerful person in the world. He's always going to be working on defense as opposed to offense. And honestly, in this film, she's not fighting anyone with superpowers either. So it'd be difficult for her to beat people up. But
that's the mistake in the story choice.
Yeah, I mean, there was a little bit of a scene at the end that was wasted with Cheetah. A fight. Yeah. I don't know how long do you think that fight was? Maybe 2 minutes.
I can barely remember it.
Yeah, because it was underwhelming because it was also at night. It was one of those night scenes. It's sort of what it's what television comic book shows do because they don't have as big of a budget. But this is a $200 million movie, so they shot that CGI scene at night, so you can barely see what's happening. So yeah, it's the Donner films were made in the 70s. This is set in the 80s. We have moved on from that. We have moved on from that kind of storytelling. People expect different things at the movie theater now. So I think there are a lot of people who grew up watching those films who can appreciate the touches that are in there. But I think she was less. She paid respect to those films in the first in the first movie. Whereas now it seems like she's trying to copy the entire tone, which doesn't make sense for a movie coming out in 2020.
Yeah, it doesn't make sense because it already showed. I mean, that was already attempted years before with Superman Returns, right?
Right.
Bryan Singer tried to to mimic that tone.
Yeah.
Pay homage to it, and it failed at the box office. In fact, a lot of people refer back to it. They look back and go, "Yeah, it was okay, but it was." Not all that. That's because I think many people, while they look back fondly on some things, when you try to rewatch it, sometimes they don't hold up quite as well, And that shouldn't be the only premise or the main premise for making a movie of today in modern times, right?
Right. Yeah.
And that final battle scene, by the way, the only thing I do remember is that golden armor to me still, didn't serve really any purpose, right?
Yeah. It looked nice.
I would have thought it'd been integrated into the story a little bit better, but it's like, hey, she happened to have it in her office instead of at the museum or something, and then she's just going to go and grab something that is worth incredibly more to her people, and she's got it just collecting dust in her office.
Right.
So.
Yeah, it's. It looked nice on but yeah, it didn't seem to it didn't seem to serve much of a purpose, and Cheetah tore it up fairly easily, and I'm not sure, and I'm not sure how they show. They showed a scene where I forget the name of the character that Linda Carter plays at the end.
Is it Artesia?
No. Asteria.
So she shows this scene in a flashback to Steve where hordes of people are banging on that and it doesn't break. But I mean, Cheetah tears it up like it's cheese. It doesn't really. Yeah. That whole scene, as we said, was underwhelming. I mean, there's a lot of build up to nothing happening and how she transitioned to the Cheetah in the first place. Made no sense.
Yeah.
They wasted Cheetah.
They didn't mention that she kind of lost her powers, but they didn't go all the way with her losing the powers. Like, I was thinking that it was more like Superman 2, where Superman lost all his powers, but they didn't even go all the way with that, which made it frustrating. It's like, okay, if you want to put on the armor because you lost all your powers, then okay, that makes sense. But then it's like, they did it like she did it kind of halfway, and it's like didn't make much sense if that was the case.
Exactly.
Right, but at this point, didn't she renounced her wish? So Steve is gone, and the guy has his body back.
Oh yeah,
remember she flew there.
Yeah, she flew there. So she like opened up and unlocked a new power after she renounced her wish because of the anguish of losing Steve. So she was full strength here.
Yeah.
It was not clear why she armored up. Maybe because she decided to go there in a very defensive manner. She didn't want to beat anyone up. Maybe that's why she armored up. I don't know.
No idea. And that's the frustrating part, right?
Yeah.
When you again think back to it, I know the scene is supposed to look cool, but I think viewers are smarter than that, right? They want to go. Wait a minute, what? Why was that even there? Why did that even happen that way? So,
right.
Again, disappointing in that. So.
Yeah.
But you mentioned the Linda Carter scene. That was a fantastic scene. That was great.
Yes, I like that a lot too.
I think everyone enjoyed that after credit scene or post credit scene.
Right.
To see that she was that person. I'm sorry, what's the name again? Artesia.
Asteria.
Yeah, they should have picked a different name. It's difficult to say and remember.
Yeah, I was like, wow, she looked like she was still from the '80s show.
Yeah,
that woman does not age. I swear.
Maybe that's why they chose the '80s. Maybe to pay respect to her. I guess the show was from the '80s, right? I don't know.
Maybe.
I think it was even earlier than that, actually. The original Wonder Woman
TV show. It was like, 70s?
Yeah, I think it was from the 70s. Yeah. I think. I'm not 100% sure. Because when I was a child, I did watch it on TV. I think it was already in syndication at that time. Mm-hmm. So.
It might have been 1980. Actually, 1980, I think.
Okay.
So.
Okay. Yeah. Anything else before we wrap up the conversation, because we've been talking for a little while. And as I said, I don't want to spend too much time harping on what we didn't like, because as I said, overall I think I like the film. I just wish it was I wish it was better for the reasons that we listed. I think the last thing I would like to say is that the way that they resolved the main battle, or the main issue rather, with Maxwell Lord, just talking through the issue, it's starting to become like the female equivalent of the third act battle scene. Because the only other place that I saw it was in the Supergirl show. So the Supergirl show actually does the same thing. I think the first season. So everyone is hypnotized throughout the world, and Supergirl has a very impassioned speech, and she gets them to snap out of the hypnotization. It's I think that third act battle scenes can become competitive and lazy, but I also think that there is a risk of this being the female superhero ending, and this can become cliche and boring as well. Whereas it'll probably become cliche and boring quicker, because you can vary the action scenes and trick people into thinking that it's something different. Whereas this is very obvious, kind of like Angel gets his wings if everyone wishes on it, kind of ending. So
yeah, it definitely got preachy, just like in Supergirl as well. And
I do want to offer one thing, is that as we kind of progress, as a society, having a different way of approaching conflict, I think that really does speak to, and coming from it from a different perspective, whether it's gender, might kind of inform us to be, to be better people. However, I kind of go back and forth on that as to whether or not it sends a good message or not, because you don't want to, like you said, Nathan, you don't want to fall into a cliche type of thing, but
Right.
the premise of it might be a good way to kind of de-escalate in some ways some conflict. Maybe if it was with the male superhero, that might be a welcome dynamic.
Yeah, I don't think that there's any problem specifically with ending a movie in this way in general. I don't think the ending, except for the logical issues that we mentioned earlier about everyone having everyone renounce their wish because everyone wouldn't have renounced their wish, or the fact that it's not if we're talking about the entire world, not everyone was doing a selfish wish, so they would have had to renounce. I don't know, my the wish that my father doesn't have cancer. So that didn't make any sense. But I appreciated that they didn't have a giant battle scene at the end, and I think a lot of these comic book movies definitely have that issue. So we should find different ways to resolve the end of these movies, so they don't get monotonous. I think that the solve for this is that the world doesn't necessarily have to be ending in all these movies. And you can have a quieter third act. You can resolve the issue without a giant battle at the end. But if the world is ending, you either have a battle or I guess the speech to the world endings. I think if they have smaller films, I mean Logan. Logan had Logan had a battle at the end as well, didn't it? With he fought himself. That was a smaller movie.
Yeah. I was thinking more like Black Panther as well. I think that really resonated with a lot of people, having a scene where, there definitely was fighting, but then at the end it's like, okay, it's almost like both of them are coming to terms,
right?
With their antagonistic behavior.
Yeah, and honestly, that film was good, but the one thing that wasn't great was that last battle scene. So they could have actually removed that and tried to resolve it in a different way,
right, exactly,
or actually fix the CGI in that battle scene. But yeah,
exactly, yeah.
All right, guys. So we can't go on forever on this, and this is probably going to be one of the first videos that we post on our channels, and I don't want to be too negative here. So we are interested in what you guys.
Despite our criticisms of some of the not so great aspects of this movie, there are lots of talks of Warner Brothers fast tracking Part 3 for this, because it actually was successful at the limited box office, and also half of the HBOMax users all watched it. So it was a big success for them. So, and they're looking to have Patty Jenkins return. She wrote this along with Jeff Johns, who is a big creative mind at DC Comics. So hopefully they'll do better with the next one, right?
Hopefully.
Yeah.
All right, guys. So that's what we think. We are definitely want to hear from you, everyone who's listening. So comment down below, like and subscribe, and we'll see you next time. Thanks.
All right. Thank you. Have a good one.
Thanks. Bye, guys.